So you're walking through a European city in the 1720s. Maybe you're a farmer. Maybe you're a blacksmith. You're just going about your day. And then you notice something. You're tall, really tall, 6'4", maybe 6'6". In an era when the average man is 5'5", you stand out. And that's a problem, because Frederick William I, King of Prussia, has noticed. He collects tall men the way other kings collect art, and his agents are everywhere, watching, measuring, hunting. Before you know it, you're kidnapped, dragged across borders, and forced into his Giant Regiment, an elite military unit where the shortest soldier is 6 feet tall. You don't get a choice, you don't get paid fairly. You're a specimen, a curiosity, a tool in the king's obsessive quest to breed a superhuman race. Welcome to the strange, disturbing reign of Prussia's soldier king. Let's begin. Frederick William I ruled Prussia from 1713 to 1740, and he was obsessed with two things: military discipline and height. Not his own height, he was short and stocky, but the height of his soldiers. Specifically, he wanted the tallest soldiers in the world. He believed that tall men were superior fighters, more intimidating, more physically powerful, and he wanted an entire regiment of them. So he created the Potsdam Giants, also known as the Lange Kerls Longfellows, a special military unit where every single soldier had to be at least 6 feet tall. In an era when most men were 5'5" or shorter, this was extraordinary. But Frederick William didn't just want tall soldiers. He wanted the tallest soldiers. So he set a recruitment standard. If you were under 6 feet, you couldn't join. If you were over 7 feet, you were practically royalty to him. The taller you were, the more obsessed he became. And this wasn't just a military project, it was personal. Frederick William would spend hours drilling his giants, watching them march, measuring them, obsessing over every inch of their height. He loved them more than his own children. Contemporary accounts describe him spending entire days with his regiment, while ignoring his actual duties as king. And here's where it gets weird. Frederick William didn't just want tall soldiers for military purposes. He wanted to create a race of giants. He believed that if tall men married tall women, they would produce even taller children. And if those children were raised in Prussia, trained from birth, they could become a new kind of human, stronger, bigger, better. It was eugenics before the word existed, selective breeding, human experimentation. And Frederick William pursued it with the fanaticism of a man who believed he was creating the future. The problem: there weren't enough tall men in Prussia, so Frederick William had to import them, and he didn't ask nicely. Frederick William sent agents across Europe with one mission: find tall men and bring them back to Prussia. These agents were essentially talent scouts, but instead of looking for athletes or actors, they were looking for height. They scoured markets, churches, festivals, anywhere crowds gathered. They carried measuring sticks, and when they found a man who met the height requirement, they made an offer. Sometimes it was money, sometimes it was a military commission, but often it was coercion or outright kidnapping. There are documented cases of men being drugged, tied up, and smuggled across borders. One famous case involved an Irish giant named James Kirkland, who was over 7 feet tall. Kirkland was working as a laborer when Prussian agents found him, got him drunk, and shipped him to Potsdam. He tried to escape multiple times, but was caught and forced back into the regiment. Another case involved an Austrian carpenter who was abducted in broad daylight, thrown into a carriage, and delivered to Frederick William like a package. The carpenter's family filed a complaint, but it went nowhere. Frederick William didn't care about legality. He cared about height. This wasn't a secret operation. Foreign governments knew what was happening, and some of them complained. Austria, France, Russia, diplomats sent formal protests, but Frederick William was shameless. He believed he had the right to recruit or kidnap anyone he wanted for his regiment, and when diplomacy failed, he resorted to bribery. He paid other European rulers to send him their tallest men. Treaties from this era literally include clauses about exchanging tall soldiers. Russia's Peter the Great, a personal friend of Frederick William, sent him several giants as gifts. In return, Frederick William sent rare artifacts, jewels, even entire rooms of amber. He valued tall men more than treasure. The most absurd example: the famous Amber Room, one of the most valuable art pieces in European history, was given to Peter the Great by Frederick William in exchange for a regiment of tall Russian soldiers. Think about that. Frederick William traded a priceless cultural artifact, a room made entirely of amber panels, gold leaf, and mirrors, for a group of tall men. That's how obsessed he was. And it wasn't just adults. Frederick William targeted boys too. If his agents found a tall adolescent, they'd try to recruit him young, train him from childhood, indoctrinate him into Prussian military culture. Some families hid their tall sons, others sent them away to avoid conscription. Being tall in 18th century Europe, especially near Prussia, was genuinely dangerous. You could be kidnapped and forced into a life of military servitude, all because a king had a fetish for height. But Frederick William didn't stop at recruitment. He wanted to go further. He wanted to create giants, and that meant breeding them. Here's where Frederick William's obsession crossed from eccentric into disturbing. He didn't just want a regiment of tall men, he wanted a dynasty of them. So he started arranging marriages. He scoured Prussia for the tallest women he could find and forced them to marry his giants. This wasn't subtle. This wasn't voluntary. Frederick William would identify a tall woman, often a peasant or servant, and order her to marry one of his soldiers. The goal was simple: produce tall children, lots of them. The couples were given incentives, extra pay, better housing, exemptions from certain taxes. But the underlying message was clear. You will marry, you will reproduce, your children will belong to Prussia. This was selective breeding applied to humans. Frederick William genuinely believed he could engineer a race of superhuman soldiers through controlled reproduction. And he pursued it with scientific precision, tracking bloodlines, monitoring births, measuring the children as they grew. There are records of Frederick William personally inspecting the children of his giants. If a child showed promise, if they were growing unusually tall, he'd take an interest, ensuring they received special treatment, military training, and eventually a place in the regiment. If a child was average height or short, Frederick William lost interest. They were disappointments, failures in his grand genetic experiment. The psychological impact on these families must have been immense. Imagine being told your value as a human being depends on your height, that your children are being measured and evaluated like livestock. And it wasn't just Prussian women. Frederick William tried to import tall women from other countries too. He sent agents to Scandinavia, Holland, and Ireland, places known for taller populations, to recruit or purchase tall women. Yes, purchase. There are records of Frederick William paying families for their tall daughters, effectively buying women for breeding purposes. This wasn't marriage in any normal sense. It was human trafficking disguised as state policy. The most disturbing part, Frederick William saw nothing wrong with this. He genuinely believed he was improving humanity. In his mind, he was creating a superior race of soldiers who would make Prussia invincible. He wrote letters to other monarchs explaining his theories, trying to convince them to adopt similar programs. Most ignored him, some mocked him, but Frederick William didn't care. He was convinced history would vindicate him. Did it work? Not really. Yes, the children of his giants were often tall. Genetics does work that way, but they weren't superhuman. They weren't unbeatable soldiers. They were just tall people. And many of them resented being treated as experiments. Some fled Prussia as soon as they were able. Others served reluctantly, knowing they'd been born into a system that valued them only for their physical size. Frederick William's breeding program produced tall children, but it didn't produce the master race he'd envisioned. Frederick William's obsession with his giant regiment cost Prussia an enormous amount of money. Maintaining the unit was expensive. These soldiers received higher pay than regular troops, better food, custom-made uniforms because nothing fit them, and special accommodations. Frederick William spent a significant portion of the royal budget on this regiment. Some estimates suggest he spent more on his giants than on the rest of the military combined. And for what? The regiment almost never saw combat. That's the irony. Frederick William loved his giants so much that he refused to risk them in battle. They were too valuable, too precious. So they spent most of their time marching in parades, standing guard at the palace, and performing drills for the king's entertainment. They were essentially very expensive toy soldiers. Frederick William would watch them for hours, sometimes forcing them to march back and forth repeatedly just so he could admire their height and precision. It was a spectacle, a performance, but it wasn't warfare. The one time the regiment did see limited action was during a minor conflict late in Frederick William's reign, and they performed adequately, not exceptionally, not like the invincible force he'd imagined. They were just soldiers. Tall soldiers, yes, but still human, still fallible. The myth of the superhuman giant collapsed the moment they faced real combat conditions. Frederick William's son, the future Frederick the Great, hated the Giant Regiment. He saw it as a waste of resources, a vanity project that drained Prussia's treasury and produced nothing of strategic value. When Frederick William died in 1740, and Frederick the Great inherited the throne, one of his first acts was to disband the regiment. He reassigned the soldiers to regular units, sold off the custom equipment, and ended the breeding program. The experiment was over. And history largely forgot about it until modern scholars started digging through Prussian archives and uncovering the disturbing details. So there you have it, Frederick William I of Prussia, a king so obsessed with height that he kidnapped men across Europe, forced them into military service, arranged marriages to breed taller children, and spent a fortune on a regiment that barely fought. It sounds absurd. It sounds like fiction, but it's documented history. Treaties mention payments for tall people. Court records describe kidnappings. Letters reveal Frederick William's breeding theories. This wasn't just eccentricity. This was early eugenics, the belief that you could engineer better humans through selective breeding. And while Frederick William's methods were crude and his goals were bizarre, the underlying ideology was dangerous. It dehumanized people, reducing them to physical measurements. It justified kidnapping, coercion, and forced reproduction. And it laid conceptual groundwork for the far darker eugenics movements that would emerge in the 19th and 20th centuries. Frederick William believed he was building the future. Instead, he built a cautionary tale about what happens when power meets obsession, when rulers start viewing people as resources rather than individuals. The Giant Regiment is a footnote in history now, a weird curiosity, but it's also a reminder. The desire to create superior humans has always ended badly. Always.